Life is hectic.
Some days are just a blur.
We're Jay and Laura LaFoon, and we help busy couples stay married for life.
Welcome to the Married for Life podcast.
Welcome to Married for Life podcast with Jay and Laura LaFoon. We are super excited to have some great friends with us that we've known, probably known Sarah longer than Craig, but have known them for a good long time and are super excited that they're going to be joining us on the marriage cruise, the Alaska marriage cruise. But they've also got a great ministry to couples. We're going to talk about that. So welcome, Craig and Sarah.
But first, tell us a little bit about yourselves, guys. How long have you been married? How many kids do you have? I know you don't have grandkids, but, you know, we can all hope for someday. But tell us what you do when you're not doing your marriage stuff.
Oh, well, so this is Sarah, and we have been married 26 years.
Woohoo!
I know. Love it. And we have 3 children, a 22-year-old son who's getting married in a few months, which is really a new chapter for us, and a daughter who's a sophomore in college who's actually studying abroad right now in Ireland, and we can't wait to visit. And we have a senior in high school who will be graduating in May. So
Wow.
It's kind of that busy season for us.
Holy cannoli, no doubt.
So you guys will be entering empty nest.
Yes. Craig, how do you feel about that?
I am actually super excited. My job is primarily small business and has been for a long time. I help Sarah out in the marriage ministry, as well as work with a group in Haiti called Healing Haiti that does some job creation and compassion ministry work. And those 3 activities tend to keep me on the road quite a bit. So I actually can't wait for the empty nest so that Sarah can travel more with me and we get to spend more time together, because we really enjoy that.
It's funny because that really is one of the keys. Sarah, we were just in Nashville and had lunch with Ken and Diane Davis, and one of the things Ken always said was that the road was so lonely because Diane didn't travel with him. And that's one of the things we found fortunate for us, is that we get to travel together, and that makes life a lot more enjoyable when you're not far away from home. And the empty nest really will unleash that ability to travel a lot.
Just for our listeners, we met Sarah through Ken Davis's Dynamic Communicators Workshop. And then we met Craig when our kids, our daughter Grace and their son Nick, went to King College in New York together. Grace made it a semester and Nick has graduated.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So
We decided that we could really high five when we realized there was a child graduated from college with a job and earning a paycheck. We thought, wow, we've really arrived. This is a great arrival point for first timers.
We tell people all the time that your job as a parent is to get your kids to leave. And so congratulations, you did it. You did a great job.
Right? Raising independent children who love the Lord. That's the goal.
Right. Yeah. So did you guys, did Nick meet this young woman at King College?
He did. Yeah, it was funny. He played soccer at King's. It's a very small school, and he actually played football in high school. And the soccer coach called him football, and we're a small team, and we need people. Megan, on the other hand, is actually a very good player, and she got recruited to the school to play soccer. So they started playing together as freshmen, and actually it's small enough school that they play the men's and women's team same day, same location. So they'd travel together on all the road trips and kind of sparked up a little relationship there as freshmen, and it blossomed into true love, as they say.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, it is a different phase when you have a daughter or son-in-law. We don't have a son-in-law. We have a daughter-in-law, and it is a different phase, and it's a fun phase. It's fun to see your kids, become adults and start on that marriage journey themselves. So,
well, and interestingly enough, on our end, Grace, we in a phone call today said, I want you to meet Trent. He and I have been seeing each other, and I think it's time you meet him. And that's step number 1. Watch out. Here we go. So, how did you guys meet? That was what I was going to ask. Tell us a little bit about your love story.
That's my favorite story. So, I was in college, and so was Sarah. We were in a big college, University of Wisconsin. Probably would not have crossed paths in a normal kind of circumstance, because I was in a fraternity and she was not a big fan of the Greek system in any means or manner. But we both ended up on the homecoming court. I was nominated, elected from my fraternity, and she from the student alumni board. And so we got to know each other there first, and maybe didn't quite see eye to eye. We both have pretty strong personalities, and Jay and Laura have experienced. But as the weeks went on and we spent more time with each other, there was something deeper there, and we still joke about it now, that it was clearly God's hand at work, because we were pretty immature, and we were probably, a little bit in lust more than in love in the beginning.
Preach that.
And and that the good Lord, saw fit to help us get together and stay together. And the initial story was pretty funny. I walked her home one night and pecked her on the cheek and gave her a little kiss and walked away. And I said some kind of smart out comment as I was walking away. And she found me the next day and reminded me that might be the last time I got the last word with her. And I would say that's been true.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. So Sarah, what was it about Craig that attracted you to him?
Well, he was super confident and very assured of himself, which was actually originally why we both sort of butted heads, because we were both that way, very strong personalities and leaders in our own right. But he was just, I was just smitten by, not only was he adorable, but he was really smart. He was an engineering student, and he just had this nice, strong confidence about him. And, I had some of my own stuff going on in those years, and I was pretty real very early on. Like, I'm not changing, and this is who I am. And if you don't like that, then see you later. And he was like, no, that's great. Cool with me, and so that was kind of an early sign, like, oh, I might need to hang on to him.
So Craig, what was it about Sarah that first attracted you?
She was super cute, and is still super cute to this day. So that always makes my heart bounce a little bit. But there was a depth. And again, back then, I probably wouldn't have answered it this way. Call it depth of character, maturity. There was just something to her that was different. And it was kind of funny because there was another girl on homecoming court that I had been kind of had my eye on for a number of years. She was actually a cheerleader. And I spent about 2 hours with her in an event one time, and that was it. I was done. She was not mature, not deep at all. She might have been cute, but that's kind of where it ended. And there was something to Sarah that I wanted to get to know more. She was very self-confident, which attracted me, but also, like I said, that intelligence or depth of character. I know it now as the Holy Spirit. She is very connected with her faith. And even then, when she was just kind of learning and maturing in her faith, I knew there was something there that was special.
Sure.
So you weren't slamming cheerleaders, right, Craig? Because I was a cheerleader. So
no,
I was not, Laura. I love cheerleaders.
Was just checking to make sure.
Just checking.
So
this one specific one.
Yeah, we get real quick here, and so so that our listeners can understand you guys as real people, not just Craig and Sarah, the marriage speakers. Tell us one of the biggest challenges that you have faced in your marriage.
Ooh, I guess you're deferring to me, Craig. How nice.
Yes, just so our listeners know, Sarah's in New Mexico and Craig's in New York while we're doing this. So, he's away on business, but he's graciously given his time to talk to us.
Right. Yeah. I would say that one of the challenges that we faced early on is twofold. Number one, we weren't really walking in our faith. We both had belief. Wait.
The University of Wisconsin-Madison, that pretty much answers that question.
Hey, no. Yes. But interestingly, I mean, it's funny, but at the same time, so ironic, because I actually, my family has a history of alcoholism and, a struggle. And I had seen kind of how that story ended, and I was struggling my own self in those years. And so I quit drinking when I was 18, which I wasn't even legal to drink when I quit drinking. And that was one of my deal breakers with Craig. And I just said, if you aren't okay with this is my life. I will be sober for the rest of my life. And if you aren't okay with that, then you have to go away.
Awesome.
And I just celebrated 30 years of sobriety on February 14th.
Yay.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. But that was actually a challenge for us at the beginning, because any of the arguments that we had were sort of centered around that. And I was trying to find my way, and he was very supportive, but I didn't want him to stop, drinking for me.
Right.
And so that was that early on, that's one of the only things I remember arguing about was just, do you know how hard this is for me? And I don't like you, those college-y conversations. But then the other challenges I would say were just sort of faith related. As we blossomed and grew in our faith, I kind of reignited my faith a little bit ahead of Craig and was, on fire and just like all about it. And he was kind of like, wait a minute, like, hello, come back to me a little bit. But he was intrigued and had a stronger faith than me in high school. But it was great when the Lord kind of brought us both to the same place at the same time, finally.
That's great. Well, hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly on my side. We've had our struggles like all marriages do. We've been blessed to overcome them. So I wanted to let Sarah go first. But I would just chime in that another topic we talk about in our marriage talk is sex. And a lot of couples do struggle with that. And we certainly know firsthand, a lot of couples that are struggling now with pornography. That was one thing that Sarah and I had to overcome as well in our marriage. Luckily that's, 10 years behind us, but that was a struggle, and it was a wedge that is, a struggle for a lot of people and was for us. And, with good communication and the grace of God, we got through that. But that was certainly an issue in our marriage.
Well, guys, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we want to talk to Craig and Sarah some more about their marriage ministry. But also, Craig, I want to pick back up on that pornography, because we have had a flood of emails probably in the last month from men and women who are dealing with this. And I would just like for you to give some of our listeners some tips, whether it was counseling, books. How did you break yourself out of that, and how have you guys really worked through that in your marriage? Because I know this is huge right now. For some reason, we are getting tons of emails. So we want to touch back on that when we come back from our break.
More with Sarah and Craig Beckman on Safeguarding Your Marriage in just a moment.
Hey everyone, this is Paul Thomas, Director of Live Events here at Celebrate Ministries. A couple of things I want to make you aware of on today's podcast, and the first is that time is running out. If you want to be a part of Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea this July, if you want to take advantage of a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Alaska and the Pacific Northwest, then you need to take action today, because the room block on the Norwegian Joy is running out. Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea will sail out of Seattle on July the 13th. It's coming back to port on July the 20th. Along the way, you get 7 nights of a bucket list adventure. Jay and Laura, as well as guest speakers Craig and Sarah Beckman, will be giving and leading sessions while the ship is at sea. Now, our room block is expiring this week. If you want to go, you need to take advantage and visit jayandlaura.com for more information. Now, also coming up soon is Celebrate Your Marriage at Grand Hotel, and that takes place on May 19th and 20th on Mackinac Island. Jay and Laura are going to welcome America's Got Talent finalist and sand artist Joe Castillo to the conference, and then special guests Keith and Chandra Rushing of Better Half Ministries are going to lead sessions during our special VIP experience, and that takes place after the conference on May 20th and 21st. Now, you can find out all sorts of information about the Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea and Celebrate Your Marriage at Grand Hotel by visiting jayandlaura.com. The Ultimate Date Night He Said, She Said Winter Tour continues. This month, Jay and Laura will be in Cleveland, Ohio, and State College, Pennsylvania. They'll also be in Springfield, Missouri, and Joplin, Missouri. You can get tickets to an event near you. You can see where Jay and Laura will be traveling this winter and early this spring by visiting jayandlaura.com. Now, let's get back to the rest of the podcast and Jay and Laura's conversation with Craig and Sarah Beckman.
We're back with Craig and Sarah Beckman, Safeguarding Your Marriage. And guys, tell us a little bit about your program that you present to couples across the country and that you're going to be presenting with us on the marriage cruise to Alaska. Give us a brief overview, and then we'll dive a little deeper into some of those subjects.
Sure.
Yeah,
we spell out the letter SAFE, use that as a little acronym for Safeguarding Your Marriage. And each one of those letters will represent a different investment that we encourage couples to make in each other, in their marriage. with this idea that we make so many investments in our lives, in cars, in houses, in college, in sports. But many times couples don't look at their marriage as an asset that really needs that investment continuously through their marriage. And so each one of these letters, whether it's adding accountability or collaborating on finances or spending time alone together, they're all investments that really strengthen the marriage, and they're very practical. They're things that you can do often, and they're not difficult to do together.
Very good. Very good. So the SAFE, can you give us what those stand for?
Sure.
Yes.
I'll let Sarah do that.
Yeah. So the first first S is spend time alone together regularly. And the next A is add accountability. And the F is find out all you can. And that pertains to love languages and also what your spouse does to spend their days when you're not together, either working inside or outside the home. And then E is engage in prayer. And then we have SAFE 2.0, which is spelled safe again. And that one, those are, S is for having sex. And yep, exactly. And then the A is apologize appropriately. And I know some of your listeners are also Gary Chapman fans, and we love the languages of apology. And that really was a recent eye-opener for us. And we talk about that and how when we're not apologizing appropriately, we might just keep growing a chasm in our relationship because we're not saying I'm sorry the way that person needs to receive it. And the book is called When Sorry Isn't Enough. And it's fabulous. So I recommend that. But then the other F is having regular finance dates. And we talk about sharing the financial responsibility and collaborating and communicating about it, because that's where we see most of the troubles are when people come to us and talk about it. One person's in charge and the other one's mad about it all the time. And I mean, you just have to do it together. Yep. And then that last E is expressing love and respect. And we talk about a little bit about that book, the Emerson Eggerichs. Is that how I say it right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of the quick overview of the 8 investments that we talk about. And we're actually working on 4 more to spell SAFE one more time, but it's not finished yet. SAFE 3.0 is in the works.
Very good. Very good. Well, we're looking forward to having you on the cruise, but let's dive a little deeper on something that Craig mentioned early or late in the first part of our podcast. And that is the challenge in our country of overcoming pornography. It's not just our country. We were in Singapore and they were talking about the pornographic issues. So let's talk about that and how easy it is to get pornography these days and how it's everywhere. And how do we safeguard our marriage against pornography?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll just tell my own personal story. Then I have a little bit of feedback that we've gotten from couples that have been with us as well. So my own personal struggle with it was that, I didn't think it was a big deal. It was something that was accepted in society. And that's just another challenge for men, especially men that aren't really plugged into a good Christian group of, couples or other men or men's group. And I was really compelled. It was probably about 10, 15 years ago now. I went to a men's retreat. And I had just joined the men's group a couple years earlier, as Sarah said earlier, that our faith really both kind of jumped and became more alive. And that was when I was in that group. And I went to a men's breakfast, and the speaker talked about pornography, and he really challenged us as men. And he said, "Here's the rule, or here's my advice: 0, none, zip. If you have any pornography in your life in any manner, it's not healthy. It's not healthy for your faith. It's not healthy for your marriage." And he really challenged us to eliminate it. And that really struck with me, that it wasn't okay, that even if society said it was, that really it wasn't. It was driving a wedge between my wife and I. It was setting unreal expectations for me as a guy. And I really took that to heart. And I'm thankful that I had a group of men in and around me that added that accountability. And that is one of the letters we talk about in SAFE, is this notion of somebody needs to be knowing what you're up to besides your spouse. Because maybe, especially for men, this is not a comfortable topic to talk to your spouse about.
Right.
But I have a problem with pornography. That's not something you're typically going to start a dinner conversation with. But if you have other men in your life that you feel you can trust and that you can be accountable to, and vice versa, I think that's great advice for men that are struggling with it. We do another part of our marriage ministry where we have men and women ask questions that they're not comfortable asking their spouse, and they can do it anonymously. And then Sarah and I will each answer those. So I'll answer them for the women, and then Sarah will answer from the men. And we did our talk just about a month ago, and I would say at least 20% of the questions I got had to do with pornography. Wow. And that the women were asking questions of, why, and why doesn't he just quit? And I tell him to quit, and it's a struggle. So I guess my advice, and I'd certainly love to have Sarah chime in as well, would be find accountability partners and communicate. Those are really good defenses, in my opinion.
Yes,
and I think every man in America struggles with pornography. I know I have. And it gets to the point that communication with your wife, it's even, honey, I don't think I should be watching this TV show. It's not pornography, but it's really provocative and is giving me thoughts I shouldn't be having. And I think you've got to have that open communication, but you're right. You cannot have your wife as your accountability partner. It's got to be other men who are committed to being faithful to their wife in this area.
Yeah, so that's great advice for the men. We have just been getting so many emails about this, Sarah, from wives who know that their husband is dealing with it, is involved in pornography, and they don't know what to do. They don't want to be a nag. They're hurt. They don't know where to go from there. Could you just give a little bit of advice, for those ladies who might be listening?
Yes. Well, first of all, I was equally guilty because for many years before our faith was really real and solid, I knew about it and I allowed it because I just thought, well, he's traveling, he's on business, like it's okay. I remember, I'm ashamed to say it, but I remember, reading him the dirty stories sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
And we had that question at our most recent marriage event, and Craig and I both just said, like, in our mind now, nothing, zero is tolerable because it doesn't honor God, because that is someone else's daughter, child, wife, it is not honoring to God to use other people in that way. And it also, like Craig said, sets unreal expectations. But for me, I was kind of involved in some ways, and I just sort of turned a blind eye, and it hadn't escalated to the point that I know it does for some people, where it turns into action with other people that aren't your spouse. But I realized that it was a sin like any other. And I tried not to hold Craig to a higher standard than I would hold myself, in the fact that, like, yes, we all sin, we all fall short. And this is something that I need to forgive him for. And instead of me being against him, I need to be fighting with him.
That's a great advice right there.
That really is good advice, because when Jay first started traveling full time and I was not traveling with him, he would always call.
We got a cell phone before cell phones were popular.
And we had favorite TV shows that we would watch together. So he would call and he would want to watch the TV show together. He's in Denver and I'm at home, and it was annoying to me at first. I'm like, I don't want to watch this show with you. I just want to sit here in my comfy PJs and be by myself. And then I realized that that's what he was doing. He was trying to keep, and so it's got to fight, not fight against, but fight for and fight with. And
we're on the same team, and it's the world and the enemy that's trying to take out our marriages and the unity and bond that we have. And so when people are hurt, it's normal and real to be hurt. But again, can we cast stones?
Right. Exactly.
We've all done these things. And so we want to fight with our man and for him and for our marriage, instead of saying, this is his fault and he's hurting me. Let's figure out how we can work with him and give him grace and permission to get healthy and help him.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to even go out on a limb here, and probably I'm going to have some listeners who aren't going to like me after I say this, but men have pornography. Women have their TV shows that they're so addicted to, that take away their time from their family and their husbands, and those unrealistic expectations. When you watch these TV shows that, or the books that you read, that give you these unreal expectations on your husband, and no, he's not going to be like the father on Parenthood or the new, the new This Is Us or whatever. I mean, I know that, as long as you're watching them and you're not wanting your husband to be like the man on there because look how he treats his wife, and and you can do that with anything. So you're right. It's not none of us can cast a stone because we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. So
exactly. And you're right. It's the comparison that will always rob our marriage of the gift of really appreciating what we have in each other. When we start comparing anything about our spouse to someone else's spouse, that is the first step in the wrong direction.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, Safeguarding Your Marriage with Craig and Sarah Beckman, we are super, super excited to have you on our marriage cruise this summer. Folks, you can still sign up for it. We're going to Alaska, sailing out of Seattle. It is going to be fantastic. But before we go, Sarah, you have got quite a strong ministry to women. You've written a book and have another one on its way. Will you give us a quick little shot of what that's all about?
It's not necessarily just women. It's people.
People.
Serving
but
other people.
You're right. But yes, I do a lot of women speaking in Jay's defense. You're right. And in Laura's defense, I have written, my first book is called Alongside, and it's about how do we love people in their hard places. Like if they've been through divorce or lost a loved one or struggling with illness, it's the what do we say, what do we do? It's very practical. And it's so that we can live out that great commandment to love our neighbor as ourselves. And there's no better time to do that than when someone is in the middle of struggle, because that's when most people run the other way. And we need to run towards our neighbor and show them the love of Christ in those times. So that was the first book, and it has been successful with men and women. And I think ironically men more than I thought, because it's so practical and they love that it's just like, I do this, and this.
Yeah.
Even Craig would attest that he started to love his neighbor, and that's not his number one spiritual gift.
It is not, but I'm better now because of Sarah.
Very good. Awesome.
And the second book comes out March 5th, and it is called Hope in the Hard Places. And it was written because so many people came to me and said, thank you for writing a book for my family and friends, but what about me? I'm the one in the middle of the hard place, and I need hope and encouragement and practical ideas as well.
Well, we can't wait. You promised us some copies of that, and
they're on the way.
Yeah. We had a great conversation, and just we're super excited for the ministry that God has for you and for you and Craig.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're so honored to be able to come on the marriage cruise with you and share some of the old safeguarding and even the new stuff we're working on.
Sounds good. Well, folks, this has been Married for Life podcast. We appreciate you listening and ask that you would rate us on YouTube and on, what's the other one? iTunes. That's what it is. This is so way above my pay grade. But rate us and share us and tell people about us as we grow our podcast community. We're Jay and Laura LaFoon, helping busy couples stay happily married for life.